All right, hello everybody. TGI Fossil Friday. We have a very special episode today, and I'm very excited because we are getting a very special preview of the Western Science Center's brand new exhibits, and we are getting that special preview from no one other than our very own Fossil Friday host, Brittney Stoneburg. Hey, Brittney.
Hey! Hi, everybody.
How are things going over there?
They're going great. We're quite busy getting ready for the reopening next week, but it's going fine.
How exciting! Getting to reopen the museum. It's been how long since
Safe
you've been open?
closure to the public. We've been
Jeez.
quite busy, obviously, doing Fossil Friday chats and all sorts of other things in the meantime, but our public exhibits have been closed to the public since last March, so we are very ready to open.
For those of you who may not know by this point, the Western Science Center is one of the largest natural history museums in Riverside County and is dedicated to sharing scientific research and education with the Inland Empire and beyond. You know, it's an amazing, amazing museum out in Hemet, just past Temecula wine country, as we like to say. Um, and Brittney is an amazing paleontologist over there. And who's joining us today from the Western Science Center?
Yeah, so joining us today is our curator, Dr. Andrew McDonald, who has been on the show before for Fossil Friday chat viewers, and Dr. Alton Dooley, our executive director, the captain of the ship, as it were.
Hello.
Hey, Elton. Hi, Andrew. How are you all doing?
Great. Working hard. Getting ready to reopen.
Mm-hmm.
You all must be really excited to not only reopen but share these awesome new exhibits that you've been working so hard at building.
Yeah, we're reopening to the public, but we've also got a whole new permanent exhibit coming. We have two new temporary exhibits, all of which we'll be sharing today. And also next week, in addition to the reopening, we'll be having the Inland Empire Science Festival, where we bring in scientific organizations like our pals at the Alf Museum to share their science. I saw that look. To share their scientific research and education with our visitors. So again, it's going to be next Saturday at 10 a.m. on the 21st. That's when we reopen and when the Inland Empire Science Festival will kick off. We are all vaccinated, which is why we're not wearing masks right now, but next week will be a masked event. So if you're planning on coming, bring your mask and bring your eagerness to learn.
Yep, the Alf Museum will be there. We've got some cool dinosaur fossils, but not about us. Today, it's all about all of you with your amazing new specimens. So as soon as you're ready, take it away and show us around.
Yeah, and as always, we will be open for questions if you have any after we kind of go over the three different exhibits that we are going to be opening. So we've got three different exhibits coming. Like I said, one new permanent exhibit, the one we're sitting in now, and that's still under construction. That's Prehistoric Pathways. But we also have two new temporary exhibits coming on. One is called Back to Basics, which is all about the difference between archaeology and paleontology. And then we'll have Kyrgyzstan Crossroads, which is actually based on the research of also a previous Fossil Friday Chats speaker, Dr. Wynn McLaughlin. So first, let's go into Back to Basics, which is, again, all about the differences between archaeology and paleontology, because it seems like people get these fields confused a lot.
Yeah, that's a question we get, or a misconception we see in a lot of visitors to the museum. That they believe archaeology and paleontology are essentially different names for the same field. And while there are some similarities in archaeology and paleontology, they're really very different fields that require a lot of different knowledge, different expertise, different methods. So that's what this exhibit tries to show off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here on the table, we have several items that are pretty obviously archaeology or paleontology. For example, you can see here, I will come up to the camera. We have these bottles that are obviously for archaeology. These are bottles from the early 20th century that were found on different mitigation projects, so different construction projects that then had to send the items they found to our museum. So that is pretty obviously archaeology. But are there any items here that kind of blur those lines?
Yeah, we do have things that, archaeology is the study of human culture and artifacts, where paleontology is the study of organisms, of ancient organisms. There are some specimens that will kind of fall into both categories. So one of the things we have, for example, you can grab this piece right here, Andrew. That's that's part of a deer leg bone, but it's also been shaped into an awl to work leather, to punch holes in leather. So it is fossil, that it's a fossil deer bone, but it's also a human artifact that is turned into a tool. So that actually falls into both archaeology and paleontology. We have other things like this cow bone, obviously a bone from an animal, but it's also been cut as it was butchered and used for meat. So a fossil artifact with evidence of human activity on it. So that's one of the things that we explore in this exhibit are the areas of overlap between archaeology and paleontology, while making sure we also discuss in there the things that make them different fields.
So in this particular exhibit would probably be great for all ages, and especially for younger kids who are interested in learning the differences between these two fields, but I do think it's going to be great for even adults to understand, because I think, like you said, people will say, oh, you're an archaeologist when you mention dinosaur bones. And these are two very different fields. And so I think it'll be great to kind of show really what is the difference.
Certainly, I think paleontologists and archaeologists will appreciate it. Because what the public sometimes realizes how much it grates to be called the wrong thing. And we usually hide it well.
It will be nice whenever we have somebody come to the museum and says, oh, are you an archaeologist or a paleontologist? What's the difference? We're like, well, you can see our new exhibit all about that. Yeah.
But especially for a museum like us that does both archaeology and paleontology, it's an important part of our story. We really do two completely different fields of study here. And it's important that the public recognizes that these two different things are going on, but they're not interchangeable. My training is in paleontology. I really don't know a lot more about archaeology than any other layperson does. Maybe only slightly more, but only because I work at a museum that does archaeology. So, yeah, I can't identify your arrowheads. I know nothing about human artifacts. But archaeologists are great at that stuff and can get amazing information out of these artifacts that, to me, just are cool looking until I know that story that goes behind them the archaeologist can tell me about.
Yeah. So that's back to basics. So that'll be one of the temporary exhibits going on for several months after we open. Another exhibit that we're going to premiere, which is again another temporary exhibit, so it'll be on for several months after we open, is Kyrgyzstan Crossroads. So like I said, if you guys remember, and if you don't, you can go on our YouTube channel to go watch it again. Dr. Wynne McLaughlin is a paleontologist and a visiting assistant professor at Pomona College, and she's done a lot of research on the fossils from Kyrgyzstan. So this exhibit has been developed in collaboration with her and her research to really look at all of the fossil mammals that she's found there and to show them off, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Kyrgyzstan Crossroads is an example of an exhibit program that we have here at the Western Center called Broader Impacts. It's a program specifically designed to give scientists who don't work in a museum a venue for presenting their research to the public through an exhibit. And Dr. McLaughlin's research is an example of that. We have what we have here on the table, a 3D print of some of the specimens that are going into this exhibit. The original specimens are both from the Western Center collections and are some of them are on loan from the University of Oregon. The original specimens will be displayed in this exhibit.
Yeah.
The one that Brittney is holding here is a skull from a rhinoceros, actually a new as yet unnamed species of rhinoceros.
Mm-hmm. And this is a 3D print.
Yeah, that's a 3D print.
They don't usually make that sound.
The original is out of the exhibit hall getting installed right now, even as we speak. One of the neat things about Kyrgyzstan, and the reason for this name, is that Kyrgyzstan's location in Central Asia is such that it's kind of a natural crossroads for organisms that are moving across Asia. And so in the Kyrgyz fauna, you see a mixture of things like the rhinoceroses, which belong to a family of rhinoceroses that evolved in Central Asia, so they're endemic to that area. But you also have a mixture of other things coming in from other places, like horses that came in from North America. There's several species of those. That's a lower jaw from a horse. Mm-hmm. And then you have things coming in from Africa, like this tiny little dik-dik-sized gazelle.
It's so cute.
That's his lower jaw. So you get this neat mix of animals that are from 3 different continents that are all coming together in Kyrgyzstan. It gives this really neat, complex fauna that we explore in this exhibit. If I'm not mistaken, is Wynn coming to?
I believe she might be. So you might have an opportunity to go ahead and ask them questions about their research. This isn't the first exhibit we've done out of this vein of working with a researcher outside of our own research team. So for example, if anybody came to the Western Science Center before we closed, you might remember an exhibit called Tiny Titan that was all about a particular sauropod species. And if you've come to our outdoor events, you've probably seen a traveling version of that exhibit. And that was produced in collaboration with paleontologists at Western University. And so we're really, really passionate about, our team of scientists can only do so much. And so if you reach out to scientists who are also working in the Inland Empire, we can really show off the breadth of science that's happening in our region.
Yep. And if you missed Tiny Titan before, the traveling version of that exhibit will be on display at the Science Festival, and the scientists responsible for that research will also be on hand to answer questions at the Science Festival.
Yeah, and so I'm very excited for this exhibit. Like you said, I think it's cool. We have rhinos, but I believe there's also other larger things, right?
We have a few bones from giraffes in that exhibit. Like we said, several different species of horses. There are deer.
How many horses?
Deer, gazelles, at least 2 different kinds of hyena, including one. There's only one bone from it, but one enormous hyena. Saber-tooth cat size. I was stunned when I saw how big the jaw was. So there's some really good stuff in this exhibit. Not one of us.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool as as what I think a lot of people think of as just a regional museum looking at Southern California. We're able to show off fossils from across the world. So I think that will be very fun. And so that'll be a temporary exhibit that's available for several months after we open. But now we can get into our new permanent exhibit based on the Menifee Formation, which is the purview of our curator, Dr. Andrew McDonald. So we're sitting in it right now. Behind us, you might see a mural produced by award-winning paleo artist Brian Eng, who's produced some other artwork for the museum, including artwork of our newest hadrosaur, or Natops, Dynamo Terror, our new Tyrannosaur, and also one of the murals that we already have in the museum for our mastodons. So yeah, Prehistoric Pathways, a whole new permanent exhibit. So that means that's going to stick around.
Andrew, you want to talk about this? This is all based on your work.
So this is Prehistoric Pathways. It's based on, as Brittney said, the Menifee Formation, which is a layer of rock that occurs in northwestern New Mexico, dates back to around 80 or 79 million years ago. So it's in the late Cretaceous, which is the last chapter of the Age of Dinosaurs. And the Menifee Formation is really interesting because it preserves an earlier fauna of dinosaurs, as well as other animals, that predate some of the really famous dinosaur beds in western North America, places like the Hell Creek Formation or the Dinosaur Park Formation. The Menifee Formation is older than those. So it contains a different set of dinosaurs, essentially earlier versions of some of our very famous North American dinosaurs. So for example, right here behind us,
and we'll show that off a little closer in a little bit,
is a 3D printed, reconstructed skull of Dynamo Terror. That's the Tyrannosaur that we have found in the Menifee Formation. It's closely related to Tyrannosaurus rex, part of the same group, but it's not nearly as big. It's smaller, but as you can see, still a very large animal. The skull is almost a meter long. Something else that we'll show you soon is the life-sized scrim that we have mounted on the wall that shows that Dynamo Terror is not as big as T-Rex, but still a very impressive animal. And we also have behind us, rotating back there in the corner, is the skull bones that we have of Ornatops, which is a dinosaur that Brittney mentioned. That's a hadrosaur. That's one of the duck-billed plant-eating dinosaurs that are very common in the late Cretaceous of North America. But just like with Dynamo Terror, Ornatops is a species that is so far known only from the Menifee Formation in New Mexico. It's part of that same older, unique fauna of dinosaurs.
So what makes the Menifee, I mean, obviously these dinosaurs are amazing, but what really about the Menifee makes making an entirely new permanent exhibit out of it basically worth it? Like, what makes it special that we're making a whole new permanent exhibit that's going to stay here for possibly decades?
So the Menifee Formation is a very rich fossil deposit. It contains a lot of dinosaur bones. Sometimes we find partial skeletons, like of Dynamo Terror and Ornatops. We find a lot of isolated dinosaur bones as well. But it's not only dinosaurs. We also find fossils of crocodiles, including the giant alligator, Deinosuchus, as well as at least 4 different types of turtles. We have bones of fish. We have found invertebrate fossils, some really nice plant fossils. So it's this whole ecosystem. It's not just the dinosaurs. It's the whole richness of that world that existed 79 million years ago is captured in the Menifee Formation and summarized by this exhibit.
What's it like having, in essence, your kind of life's work? You've been working on the Menifee Formation for a long time. What's it like having an entire exhibit built around it?
It's very gratifying. Myself and a lot of other people have been working in the Menifee Formation for a long time. And yeah, this represents a great deal of work, many discoveries over the years.
As a Western Science Center, what was kind of the impetus for putting this exhibit together and dedicating a whole corner of our museum to this research in particular?
Well, as soon as Andrew started showing us the kind of things that were coming out of the Menifee, we knew eventually we would have to do an exhibit about the Menifee. Because like you said, it's just too interesting, too important a formation to ignore. We weren't sure initially exactly when that exhibit would happen or what form it would take, but we knew it would be something. And then after we found a new Tyrannosaur, like, well, yeah, Tyrannosaur, we got to show it off. But as I told Andrew, the original type specimen of Dynamo Terror were just some tiny scraps of bone. They were important and identifiable scraps, and they were amazing looking to a Tyrannosaur expert. But to a layperson, it's like, is that a bone or a rock? And I told Andrew jokingly one day, it's like, Andrew, it's great you found a Tyrannosaur, but how am I supposed to exhibit that? You got to go find me a better one. And so he went out into the field and he found a better one. The very next trip out, he found this amazing Dynamopterus skeleton that's at least 10% complete and has a nearly complete skull. Well, there we go. I mean, I told him I can't exhibit it unless he brings me a better Dynamoptera, and then he did the very next trip. So he called my bluff and forced my hand. We had to do the exhibit.
Yeah, so, all right, everybody, I'm going to give you a little bit more. We're going to go on a field trip. So everybody hold on tight because I'm going to pick this camera up and we're going to get a little bit more of a look-see into the exhibit. So, again, everything is still under construction. We are still working on this. We're going right down to the wire, but this will be completed by next week when everybody visits. But behind me, you might be able to see, there we go, that is an entire life-size scrim of Dynamoptera right there. And then
3D prints of the bones that were recovered from the skeleton will be attached to that scrim when it's complete. Everything that we found from the whole scrim and all the bones that are going to be attached to it represent more than 200 3D prints that we've been producing during the entire pandemic to try to get this exhibit ready.
Yeah, we've been very busy during our closure. Just as they mentioned, there are 3D printed reconstructions, so you can see that one of the Dynamoptera skull, including 3D prints of the new material as mentioned. And back there on a lovely turntable, you can see Ornatops, our new Hatchosaur, spinning very slowly. Yeah, so this exhibit has been in production for a long while. Let me set everybody down here.
Hey, wait, Brittney, can you show the scrim again? Like, kind of back up a little bit just so people can see the full scale of it? There we go.
Yeah, we can see the full scrim. And actually, I can also show you, we actually just started installing some of the actual bones. So I can go ahead and make an attempt to show you some of these bones. There you go. So these are the actual bones that are going into the exhibit. So it's not just 3D prints, we're also putting the actual fossils on display. You can see there, those are those little bones right here, you can see, are Invictarx zephyrI. So that is the notosaur, the armored dinosaur that Dr. McDonald discovered. We also have some very cool Dynamoptera material I get to kind of give you a sneak peek of here. Hasn't even gone in the exhibit yet. So you can see we have some teeth and a jaw there. So yeah, this stuff is all going in today. So excuse our mess, but putting exhibits together is hard work. There we go. Yeah, so how long has everybody been working on getting this exhibit put together?
We made the decision to go forward with this exhibit. As I recall, it was a few months before we shut down. So it was late 2018. We decided to move forward on this exhibit. We only decided the actual installation schedule during the pandemic. We were able to actually move things up a little bit because with the shutdown, once we were able to get staff back into the museum, we were able to devote a lot of resources to working on all these exhibits. Under any normal circumstances, we would never try to open 3 exhibits at the same time. We're able to do that because we don't have any visitors right now.
Yeah, so as you guys might have seen, we've been doing a lot of virtual programming, including Fossil Friday chats, virtual field trips, all sorts of things. But while that's been happening, we've been basically doing a soft renovation of the entire museum.
Yeah, there are changes here that aren't just in the exhibits. We've made big modifications to our gift shop. We've added things to the display screens, the exploration station. Just kind of done a general run through all of our public areas, repaired aging exhibits, and in some cases upgraded them to bring them up to modern standards. Just generally kind of cleaned the whole place. So we've been doing all kinds of things to make a great visitor experience when we reopen.
So, well, thank you guys for showing off all the different things that we're going to have on exhibit soon. And if anybody has any questions about our reopening, about the exhibits, basically anything related to our museum, feel free to let us know and put those in the chat. But thank you everybody for showing off, letting us show off what we're gonna open to next week.
Hey, Brittney. So I have a question. What goes into planning an exhibit like this? Like from, the idea to design to what fossils and how to create 3D prints and stuff. Like, what is the workflow? Like, how long does it take, and what do you do to create something like this?
You make it sound like it's such an organized plan.
I mean, for me, yeah, probably.
There are, though, an amazing number of things and things that you won't necessarily think about. When you look at an exhibit, you see the visible public part of it. There's so many things that are not visible, both in time or just in space, that went into making that exhibit happen. So besides picking the specimens that we wanted to display and kind of figuring out what the theme and the story of the exhibit was, we had to figure out where it was physically going to go. We didn't add another hall to the museum, so we had to carve space out that we were already using for other things. We had to make sure that we could actually fit the story that we wanted to tell, the specimens that we wanted to use into that space. Design new cabinetry for them, decided how we wanted to display the stuff, and make sure that visually it still kind of fit with the other things in this exhibit hall, while still making it clear that this is a separate display. A particular challenge that we have is that we're in part of the exhibit hall that includes our Diamond Valley fossils, which are all ice age from this part of California. And now this one corner of the exhibit hall is different in that it contains Cretaceous fossils from New Mexico. We want there to not be a visual clash between those, but we need to, at the same time, make sure the visitors are aware that when they walk into this part of the exhibit, they're not in Ice Age California anymore.
And there's a particular wrinkle with that, which I find just hilarious, in that so locals might recognize that near Hemet is a city called Menifee. There is a city of Menifee within 20 miles of us. And the formation that Dr. McDonald happens to work in is the Menifee Formation.
That causes problems with trying to figure out a name for this exhibit. Because early on, we can't use the name Menifee in the title because local visitors will think that it comes from the city of Menifee. So how do you name an exhibit when you can't use the name of what the stuff is called?
The plight of the exhibit design.
Right?
We had to plan for lighting, for sound, getting power outlets to the right position for all of these things. Doing that scrim that Brittney was showing you earlier just turned out to be almost a nightmare of planning. We did a smaller test scrim of a different animal for a different exhibit back in 2019, I guess, to kind of test the printing process. And that helped us a lot, but it turned out that even with that, it didn't scale up perfectly. So it took us months and months to make that scrim. Literally, I took one of the museum printers home to my house during our lockdown, and every day was printing out a different piece of the scrim. I would print it, my son would take it out into the backyard and spray paint it, and then we would do the next one 200 times.
That's a process.
Then we had to bring them here and put them all together.
Yeah.
Puzzle
I don't think anyone realizes how long sometimes even a, quote, small exhibit can take to just build.
Yeah. And, we've got different contractors that we have to work with to put these things together, because even though we build our exhibits in-house, there are some skills that we have to contract out. So we have all this amazing artwork that Brian Eng is doing with us. That means we need to work really closely with Brian to get the types of art that we want, get on the timetable that we need, make sure that they're fitting thematically with the story. We had a contractor that built these fantastic cabinets for us. And it's not just throwing a cabinet in there. These are specimens that are all under current study. And Andrew is still working on describing these things. One of the things that we pride ourselves on here is that we put stuff out to the public as soon as we possibly can, even if the research is still ongoing. But that means we need to make sure that those specimens are available for scientists to be able to work on. So we not only have to have this cabinet that keeps the specimen safe and secure, but it also has to be a cabinet that we can easily open up and take the specimens out when we need to measure them or photograph them or whatever.
Well,
so it's a difficult cabinet design.
for specimens, Alton, like, what goes into choosing what is an actual specimen that goes on display versus a replica, either a 3D print or something like that? How do you know which ones you're going to choose from?
We always put the original specimens on exhibit if it can be done safely. In our museum, anything that is touchable is a replica. Anything that's not behind glass, essentially, is a replica. Original specimens are always behind glass. That's true of this exhibit as well. Sometimes, if it's a specimen that we don't have in our collection, we may make a replica of a specimen from another museum and do that, or we use replicas readily to essentially make a display that the visitor can get closer to. One of the things that we're proud of with this exhibit, for example, is that several of the displays are 3D prints that are intentionally touchable because there are features on the bones that are more obvious if you can feel them. There's one, for example, that has bite marks from a crocodile on one of the bones from Dynamo Terror, where crocodiles apparently ripped the body apart and they bit into the bone in the process. Those bite marks are kind of subtle to look at, but you can feel them all over the surface. And so we made a print of that bone and we're attaching it directly to the countertop and encouraging visitors to feel that so they can feel those individual bite marks themselves. That's something we obviously can't do with the original bone. They would get destroyed. But making these replicas allows us to give visitors a more full experience that they can get otherwise.
Awesome. Andrew, here's a question for you. This is all, I mean, the Menifee portion is based off of your research. What's it like for you to not only, of course, have this research, but as someone who, loves paleontology for a long time, what's it like getting to see your own research become an exhibit? And what was it like to work with like an artist to see the fossils that you described come to life?
It's a very special experience. So the fossils that are on display here, the fossils are the most precious thing in the exhibit, and that's probably the thing that carries the most impact for me. But the fossils are, to help the fossils tell the story that they can tell, we need to do things like these back here. So to fully realize what the animals, what the place was like 79 million years ago. That's what the exhibit is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a very immersive experience. So showing the fossils that we have, it shows how the animals are preserved today, how that world is still preserved today, what we have to study. But to fully show it, we need to do things like Alton needs to print 200 screen pieces, and we need to make 3D skull reconstructions, and we need to have Brian paint amazing murals, to make it a full experience. And working with Brian is, we always learn a lot from each other. So the process of what ornatops is going to look like, what Dynamo Terror is going to look like, fully fleshed out in the exhibit. We always go through different possibilities, looking at modern animals, different versions, some more extreme, some with more subtle features, and then finding out what we're all comfortable with, where we all want to go that's scientifically well supported. So yeah, so it's always a very educational process.
So mention that, Andrew, because one of the displays we're going to have, one of the things we're getting from Brian is a reconstruction of Dynamo Terror and what he might have looked like, and we've encouraged Brian to go kind of as far as the science lets him go with this reconstruction. That we don't want something that looks like it came out of Land of the Lost or something like that.
Or Jurassic Park.
Or Jurassic Park. But that leaves a lot of room for interpretation. And Brian gave us a bunch of sketches to kind of conceptual sketches. I could go this way, I could go this way. What do you think? We're actually putting all those sketches on display. So we have the reconstruction we all settled on, but we're also going to show, we made it look like this, but it could have looked like any of these. And all of these are equally supported by the science. There's still, as much as we know, there are a lot of unknowns still. There's still a ton of mystery out there, and lots of room to explore these things. And we're going to put that right out in the exhibit.
That's awesome. I mean, for Brittney, like, for you, when you're like helping and working on these kind of things, where does, not draw the line, but how do you balance artistry with science and education in an exhibit to make sure it all tells this wonderful story that people learn from, but also are inspired and get, are in awe of when they see it?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part. Our collections manager slash, in this case, exhibit designer, Darla Radford, has done a great job of making this an immersive experience where, the kind of idea is to make people feel like they're walking into the Menifee Formation as it was 80 million years ago. So yeah, you have to balance the science, but you also have to make it enjoyable for people to come visit. We want them to come away with it feeling like, oh, I learned something, but also that was really cool. So there's different components. There's going to be an auditory component to this exhibit. As you walk through, you might hear what the forests in the Menifee Formation would have sounded like, based on the science as far as we can go. So it's really just trying to strike a balance and make people kind of feel like they've got to visit the Menifee Formation, even though, we'll never be able to do a 100% perfect reconstruction. We will never be able to take like a very, an 100% accurate snapshot of what this place looked like during the Cretaceous period. But we can get close, and we're going to try and get as close as we can and make sure people come away with more knowledge about the past and also feeling like they got a great experience.
That is until we get a TARDIS, right?
Yeah. Hey, we're going to have our fundraiser soon, so if anybody wants to support our construction of a TARDIS or other time machine.
I would love to have this move out of TARDIS to build an exhibit.
Exactly.
Andrew, what if somebody develops a holodeck exhibition room? Wouldn't that be cool?
I want to know how much it costs to maintain.
Yeah, and does it have safety protocols that can be deactivated?
Oh, that would be a whole other version of like Jurassic Park where like all the holodeck things escape and go crazy. I would watch that. I would definitely watch that. Really quick, just something a little bit more on the serious side of things. The Western Science Center is thankfully finally able to reopen to the public after a very rough year for not just you, but for natural history museums and educational institutions in general. How has the pandemic affected your museum from research to, education, in the last year?
We can kind of split that up. In a lot of ways, Western Center was fortunate. We were able to weather the pandemic pretty well. We're a financially fairly strong museum, so we were never in any danger of being permanently closed, which has happened to some museums during the shutdown. Like most places, it caught us a little bit flat-footed. We actually had a major event scheduled for the day we shut down that we had to cancel less than 24 hours out. And a lot of our museum, kind of our the way we approach being a museum involves direct interaction, personal interaction with visitors, or at least it did in the before times. So it was a major shift for us to kind of move everything virtual. That said, we didn't have to lay staff off, and that meant that we had everybody available to jump in, find ways to get programming out virtually and in safe ways to people. And a lot, Fossil Friday Chats with you guys as part of this, and some of these things have been really successful, like Fossil Friday Chats, are going to continue even after we reopen because we learned new ways to reach people that we didn't have before. So we have actually learned a lot from it, and I think improved our overall package of the way we do outreach. So you can list some of the specific things that we've done.
Yeah, we did a lot. I think our staff really just kind of buckled down, and we made virtual field trips. We took our Science Saturday programming, which was again an in-person event that would happen every month, and we put that online. We did videos. We've done all sorts of things to really make sure, because I think the pandemic didn't change our mission, which was to bring science, research, and education to the Inland Empire and beyond. And so that didn't change. So we just had to figure out, okay, how can we do that safely while this is happening? And I think we succeeded. And I think the Alf Museum succeeded as well, of having to pivot to this new kind of world we're living in for now. And I mean, it's really exciting to finally get to the point where we can reopen to the public and welcome people back through our doors. But, like Alton said, there's a Fossil Friday Chats will continue. A lot of our other digital programming will probably continue. It's a great way of reaching people who may have never been able to come to our museum. And so we learned lots of things, and we're very excited to finally get to the point where we can invite people back to see these fossils in person.
And for you, Andrew, how did the pandemic affect science part of the museum?
Well, we were actually able to achieve quite a lot despite the pandemic. As an institution and with a number of our research collaborators, we got 4 papers published during the pandemic, including naming ornithopes, paper by one of the students we've been working with describing Deinosuchus from the Menifee Formation, Brittney's own horse paper. So in many aspects, the science continued to thrive during the pandemic, just as the outreach activities did. We just had to pivot to a more, we weren't able to work in the prep lab as much. We weren't able to do field work in 2020, but we kept the science going as best we could. Still managed to do a lot.
It was a great opportunity for writing.
Yeah.
And so we were able, I think as an institution, to get, I believe, 5 peer-reviewed papers published during the shutdown. Most with museum first authors, and then those have been with the first author.
Yeah. That's the one thing. That's the part of science that you can do from in front of a computer at home. Right.
Well, I think it's safe to say that it's like, even during this pandemic, museums and other educational institutions have been doing their best to make sure that people are supported, with education wise. And so it's an amazing thing. Of course, I'm biased. I saw it all firsthand. I got to help out on a few of it, but it's really amazing what the Western Science Center has been able to do in this last year and a half. And again, the importance of supporting your local museums, right?
Yeah, we definitely couldn't do it without our community. Like Alton said, we're in a really strong financial position, and part of that is because of our community. So we're very excited to be able to give back by opening our doors.
Well, thank you out there to the Western Science Center community, especially out there to your local folks in Hemet, right?
Mm-hmm.
They always step up for us. This museum was founded largely through community efforts back in 2006 to begin with, and that we're seeing people continue to step up and support us whenever we need. We've talked a lot about 3D printing in this exhibit, how important it is for us. Our entire 3D scanning and printing capability all came from donations that the local community provided to us a few years ago. With support like that, we can do almost anything.
That's amazing. One more question before we start to close off. For all of you, what do you think the importance of exhibits are, especially in natural history museums, for our community, for the public? Not just the reason for them, but like, why do we have to keep building these things so that people can learn?
One of the key things when we approach exhibits, and I talked about this a little bit with broader impacts. Almost any professional field requires expertise and requires a way to present that expertise to the rest of the public, no matter what that field is, scientific, artistic, or whatever. Musicians have concert halls, athletes have stadiums. Okay? Museums are the medium that professional scientists use to present their work to the rest of the public. There really is no other major physical way for science to get out there what it is we do. So we are the interface between science and the public. And the exhibits are the key part of that interface. Our view here of research is that research that isn't disseminated isn't completed. You haven't finished your research until you told people about it. And that doesn't mean just 5 other experts in your field. That means you tell everybody that'll listen about it. So from that point of view, the exhibits that we make are as important a part of our research as the scientific papers that we publish. That is part of the way that we tell everybody what we've discovered. And so they're an absolutely critical part of our mission. We don't even see it as a separate part from our research. It's just a logical extension of the research that we do. It's kind of how it has been.
I think
Awesome.
it's also a way to provide the public with the most up-to-date science. It's like this, for example, this Menifee exhibit that we're installing right now, Prehistoric Pathways, it is a permanent exhibit, but it's not going to be a static exhibit. So we will add new fossils as we discover them. We'll add new information. So this exhibit will grow and change as the science does.
Awesome. I'm so excited to see the exhibits next Saturday. I'm so excited to join you for Inland Empire Science Festival. So as always, for all of you, what's one piece of advice you want to give for folks who might be interested in going into exhibit design or working in a museum?
I've heard a lot of people say this, but I think it holds true, is stay curious. Because I think this job gets a lot harder if you stop being curious and stop wanting to know more. If you don't want to know more, you're going to be able to find out more and let people know about it. And so stay curious. That will keep you hungry as you try to get through this, get into museums and exhibits.
And I guess I would say learn as much as you can about science and the art history of it. As Alton said, or as both Alton and Brittney said, these exhibits are all a combination of decisions that fall in the realm of scientific research and artistic design. We have to be able to tell a story while at the same time being true to what we know, to what the evidence tells us. So don't be afraid to look for a narrative and let the science be your guide.
I would say find a way to interact with museums. If you have the opportunity, volunteer for them. If you don't, try to visit them. If you have the means to do so, become a member of a museum and explore them. If you have no museum locally, try to explore them online. Talk to people that are in the museum world, see the way museums do things and become familiar with them. look at the different ways and that they present information. If you're interested in the museum field, try to look beyond the straight up part of the exhibit, what the information is, and think about how do they present this information? Why do they do it this way? Museums can take a lot of different approaches to how they do exhibits and present information. There's no single way, there's no single right way. And so one thing that museum people do a lot is visit museums. And constantly. Like, ooh, I really like the way that museum did this. We're going to do that.
It's true. I just got back from vacation and I stopped at least like 4 different museums and an aquarium. And the whole time I was just like, oh, I'm taking a picture of this. I'm going to do this at the museum. That's all we ever do.
If you're at a museum or an aquarium or a zoo and you see somebody taking a lot of pictures of the signage, they probably work for another museum or other similar institution.
Sometimes they're also the loudest group in the museum, but not for a reason of like them like being so excited of like, oh, this is such a great exhibit, let's do this.
Yeah, I can't count the number of times I've come back from vacation, got our facilities guys and showed them a picture and said, we need to build this.
Well, thank you all so much. Brittney, you want to give the spiel for the upcoming exhibit debut and Inland Empire Science Festival?
So you can join us all next Saturday, August 21st at 10 a.m. That is when we will officially reopen to the public and the Inland Empire Science Festival will start. Again, do bring your mask. We are requiring all of our visitors to wear masks, so make sure you mask up when you come visit us. And yeah, we are very excited to have everybody again. We will be open every day except for Mondays going forward.
Will it be advanced reservation or is it just open entry?
Will not be advanced reservation, so just come up to the admissions desk and we'll go forward from there.
Awesome. Well, that was so cool. Thank you all so much. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning in today. Special shout out to Alexa, who is watching every week. So hi, Alexa. Thank you so much for being an awesome fan and a supporter of Fossil Friday Chats. As always, if you like this program and would support programs like it at both the Alf Museum and the Western Science Center, you can find links on how to do that in the description below. And you can find links for the exhibit and the Western Science Center there as well. Thank you all so much. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel for more stories from the world of paleontology, and we'll see you all next week. Bye!